What's up, everyone? Welcome to This Day in Philly Sports History for June 13th, 2025. I'm your host, Joe Montgomery. Welcome to a feel-good Friday edition. No negative Friday the 13th vibes here today. It's all feel-good all day. Summertime is here. That means trips down to the Jersey Shore. And whether you're going down for the weekend, whether you're going down for the season, whether you're going down for a week, Beach Caddy has you covered, especially if you have kids. So listen. Picture this, you're going down, you have young kids, they're stuck in the car, in traffic, going down there, and then you have to move everything into your house. Kids are running around, they're excited, you're getting frustrated, you're getting all sweaty. Let Beach Caddy take all of that away. Have fun with the kids as they take your stuff from your car into your house with their bellhop service. And if you're only going down for a weekend, a day, whatever it is, best beach carts at the Jersey Shore. None of those little small plastic wheels that get stuck in the sand and it's like a full body cross-training workout pulling them through the sand. Glides right through. I've been telling you all week. Last week I saw a picture or a video of a guy who had everything loaded up, both kids sitting on top. He's pulling it with one hand like he was meant to be. That's how good these things are. So Beach Caddy will take the stress out of your summer vacation. Go to Ocean City, Sea Isle, Stone Harbor, Avalon, or Wildwood, or if you're in those cities, Beach Caddy's got you covered. BeachCaddy.app. Use the promo code Jimbo to take 10% off of your bellhop service as well as your beach cart rental. Don't get stressed out on vacation. It's supposed to be a relaxing time. Beach Caddy takes the stress out of it. Available in Ocean City, Sea Isle, Stone Harbor, Avalon, and Wildwood. Be sure to use that promo code Jimbo to take 10% off your bellhop and your beach cart rental and get your vacation started off right. All right, big weekend series here for the Phils. Against the Blue Jays down at Citizens Bank Park. Good old Interleague. Huge series for them. And hopefully I want to see them continue the momentum they had against the Cubs. Rangers pitching tonight. Christopher Sanchez tomorrow. Zach Wheeler on Sunday. Definitely need to take 2 out of 3. I want to see the offense continue to roll. And Mr. Bryson Stott, if you could, be a good time to start hitting. We've called out Bomer, he started hitting. We called out Harper earlier. He started hitting. Just called out Schwarber. I want to see some Schwarber bombs this weekend. It's June. Come on, man. It's hitting season. You, Mr. Stott, need to get involved in that. But Phillies, Blue Jays, all weekend still gives me PTSD from 1993. More on that in a minute. Before we get into our housekeeping, huge congratulations and shout out to the Upper Dublin Cardinals who defeated Shaler 8-2 yesterday to win the PIAA 5A state championship in baseball. Just a dominating win, and it seems like they're going to be around for a little bit of time. Freshman pitcher went the distance to get the win for the Cardinals yesterday. So congrats to all the Upper Dublin Cardinals out there. Go Cards, state champions, PIAA 5A champions. All right, be sure to follow me on social media, Jimbo_Mont on Twitter and TikTok, on Instagram at Philly Jimbo. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mont, and continue to spread the word as we grow this thing. I've been telling you, I'm in the process of sort of tweaking and kind of structuring things here. This will be, tomorrow and Sunday will be the last weekend shows for the summer, switching to a Monday through Friday format in an effort to kind of expand some things. Want to do more interviews, obviously the Eagles pregame show. So what it'll do is it'll open up more time for me to kind of get that done. But you'll still get Monday through Friday, the same great content, experimenting with some new segments, which I'll start talking about next week. But just looking forward to really shifting and really kind of repurposing and refocusing everything. Still the same great content, just Monday through Friday now. And if you're looking for highlights, newspaper clippings, pictures, photos, go to any of my social media, including Facebook and LinkedIn, where they are always every day, even if it's a couple pictures from the newspaper of that day. I tell you all the time, I use the newspaper, newspapers.com all the time to get some ideas. And even one of the things today was not on my radar, but as I was researching, looking in the paper for one of the other events, I'm like, wow, I have to cover this, and I'll explain why later. So thank you for your support, but go to the social media for any different highlights. And of course, it's Friday. That means we spent Fridays with AI. Never know when AI is going to show up, so stay tuned for that as well. All right. Upper Dublin Cardinals won the PIAA 5A championship. Wish they had some custom-made hype chains from Lotwin to help celebrate. Maybe we can get them over to the team this summer. But these things are great. Send them your idea. They will work with you. Such meticulous artwork that they do. So get your 3D custom hype chains. They're great for fantasy football, youth sports, bachelor parties, just gag gifts at the office, just having some fun. Kids love them specifically. So go to Lotwin, get your 3D custom hype chains, get hype. Use the promo code TCCPOD for 10% off your order. That's Lotwin.com, promo code TCCPOD. Get your 3D custom hype chains. All right, yesterday's trivia question. I asked you, Brad Lidge, we were talking about his 47 consecutive saves without a blown save. It was even more if you count the postseason, but where does that rank? And who has the all-time consecutive saves without a blown save? That would be Eric Gagne with 84. Yes, 84. You heard that right. From 2002 to 2004. The next closest is 60. So pretty impressive by Eric Gagne. Thank you for everybody who reached out. We had a good discussion on the Discord channel. You can go access that in the first link in the description. But there will be another trivia question here later in the show. All right, we're going to talk a little Sixers, and I was going to wait to start doing some draft stuff until next week, but this story was in the news. I've seen it reported a couple different places. I'll credit Crossing Broad because that's where I originally saw it, but there was a couple other places I saw this, and the Sixers flew out Tyrese Maxey for their meeting and dinner with VJ Edgecombe from Baylor. And so, a couple things about this. I'll get into VJ here in a minute. The fact of the matter is, that means they're basically saying, Maxey, this is your team. I don't know what that means for Joe. I haven't heard any updates from his knee injury or knee surgery. Who cares what it means to Paul George? If they could somehow unload that, great. But that means it's Maxey's team. So I think what they're trying to do is get somebody in who can play well with Maxey. There's been conflicting or I shouldn't say conflicting, just numerous reports out there about what the Sixers want to do. The big story yesterday was that they're in discussions with San Antonio to trade up for number 2, likely to take Dylan Harper. I'll get more on that in a minute, but it does seem that they're very big right now on VJ Edgecombe, and he's a guard, which we have a lot of guards, but he can defend and he can rebound. Even though he has a shorter wingspan, he's a good defender, good rebounder, very high energy guy, does a lot, very athletic. He has international experience. He played in the Olympic qualifying for the Bahamas team, so he was able to play against some of these NBA stars, which is good. And he played well. I think he averaged like 16 points a game during the qualifying tournament. Does need to work on his shooting and ball handling. But those are things I think once you get into the NBA, you can teach unless you're Ben Simmons or Markelle Fultz, and then forget about it. But I like the fact that they're getting Maxey's input. And that means Maxey is well aware of Edgecombe. But Edgecombe, like I said, is very athletic, good character, very mature player. And, I mean, he played in the Big 12, which is one of the better conferences in college basketball last year. Could certainly develop into the 3-and-D player I think they need. A ton of upside, but I think he's more polished and ready to go now. So, like I said, I was going to wait on some of this, but obviously the two best players are Cooper Flagg and Dylan Harper. If the Sixers would be able, if one of those guys fall to the Sixers, it's no-brainer. Take him. Right now, I'm taking VJ Edgecombe at 3 over Ace Bailey, only because I feel Edgecombe, even though Bailey's bigger, I think he's a more NBA-ready player. I think Ace Bailey has a ton of potential or upside, whatever adjective you want to use, but you got the third pick, and it's not like you're in a rebuilding time right now, the Sixers. They're kind of stuck in that limbo where they could be contenders. So you need somebody who's going to be able to come in and contribute right away, a la Jarrett McCain last year before the injury. So that's kind of where I would lean. I would not be upset if they got Ace Bailey, but I think Edgecombe is the more NBA-ready player right now. Bailey's upside probably is higher than Edgecombe's. However, like I said, I mean, unless this is the Eagles and Howie Roseman having the third pick somehow lucked into that, you're not in a position right now to sort of take chances and take projects. And this isn't the process. I think what you need is you put all your eggs into Joel Embiid and Paul George. You need to get guys that can come in and contribute with those guys right now. And I think Edgecombe is that guy. Like I said, I would not trade up because the issue with trading up is what are you going to give up? I also don't think – and now, if you can somehow – and I love Joe, one of my all-time favorite players, but if you could somehow unload Joe, Paul George to get up into the second pick, sign me up. I will do that. But I don't want to be trading and draft picks and other assets that we have in order to move up when you got to kind of it's a balancing act there. I don't necessarily a lot of question marks, I should say, depending upon Joe's health and Paul George, but you got to kind of strike the balance of, all right, I need a guy that can play now in case these guys do turn out, but also they'll be ready for the future. And you don't want to necessarily mortgage your future to build around Joe and Paul George. So it seems as though with Maxey going out to meet with Edgecombe, this is Maxey's team, and they're sort of dealing with what they have now, but looking forward. So like I said, I think Edgecombe is the better fit right now. I know a lot of people are high on Ace Bailey, and I don't blame them. I just Big 12 versus the Big 10, and Bailey went to Rutgers. They didn't make the tournament. Edgecombe went to Baylor, which is one of the top programs in the country. Don't overthink this. When's the last time you had a good basketball player out of Rutgers? Exactly. So I'm saying don't overthink this. Don't mortgage your future. Now, if Dylan Harper happens to fall to you, I would be okay with that. I did see also a mock draft from The Athletic that had the Sixers trading multiple times and ended up with like 2 or 3 first-round picks this year where they traded down. I still don't know. I mean, you have an opportunity with the third pick. I say take it. Don't overthink it. Take VJ Edgecombe. But let me know what your thoughts are on the Sixers draft. That is coming up in less than 2 weeks once the marathon that is the NBA Finals is over. But I think Edgecombe's the guy. But what do you think? 267-495-8531. That's a Back to the Future voice and text line. You can also hit me up on the Discord channel, any of my social media. Let's talk some Sixers. Be sure to check out my boys over at the Clashing Conferences podcast. Great things happening on their Sports Fan Network. Always looking for members. They have great discussions. They had Laser from the American Gladiators on. You can check out that episode available wherever you get your podcasts as well as on YouTube. And if you're in need of media services, they can help you out there. Love being a part of the Clashing Conferences Network. So go to clashingconferences.com for details on how you can get involved and what they have to offer. And then, of course, check out the podcast every Thursday and Friday, wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. And it's still, even though Father's Day is on Sunday, you can just tell Dad, look, Dad, and Dad will understand. Sometimes Mom will get all worked up about it, but tell Dad, be like, look, man, got you these shirts. They're not here yet. I'll get them to you when you come. Go to Philly Goat. They got you covered for Father's Day, whether it's a T-shirt, the shoes, hats. They got the Nick Foles Dad Season, the Philly hat, the Philly Fanatic Rocks glasses, the cooler, which has been the pool's been open for 2 weeks now, and it's been an absolute lifesaver. Go to Philly Goat, check it out. And of course, in honor of Blue Jays Phillies this weekend, if you're like me, your dad's like me, get him the Joe Carter Ruined My Childhood, because truthfully, after that home run in 93, we all grew up and realized just how evil the world of professional sports are. Excuse me. So go to Philly Goat, use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. And I was going to say, we have a toxic relationship with Philly sports. They got a shirt that says that too. The Garbage Pail Kids. Philly Goat is the GOAT. So go hook up Dad and use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. All right, June 13th. Got a little Flyers, little Phillies today. And on this day in 1995, the Flyers were eliminated in Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals 4-2, losing to the Devils, who would go on to win their first Stanley Cup that year. Flyers got the scoring going first in the first period. Jim Montgomery, no relation, got the goal. And then Ron Hextall kind of blew up, gave up 4 straight. Martin Brodeur was standing on his head. Mikkel Renberg did score a power play goal late in the fourth, but it wasn't enough as the Flyers ended their season in the Eastern Conference Final, losing Game 6 to the Devils 4-2. Eric Lindros, not a good series, only had 2 goals and 3 assists. But the Flyers would be back the following season, and then they would eventually get to the Stanley Cup in 1997. Speaking of that 1997 team, we talked last week about them not being able to get it done, getting swept out. Well, as I was researching the other thing we're going to do here in a minute, the big story on this day back in 1997 was the Flyers firing Terry Murray. And this came a week after he called the team out for being in a choking situation, losing Game 3. Players obviously did not like that. So Bob Clark was like, nah. And you know Bob Clark is not going to be hanging on to a coach who's calling out the team, calling out the players. But Terry Murray, players weren't necessarily fans of him. You can't call your team out for choking in the middle of the Stanley Cup final. Even if it was true, it was true. I mean, that's the thing that once I read that, I remember. The fact of the matter is, the Flyers were choking. They dominated all season. They get to the Stanley Cup Finals, and Scotty Bowman was like, "Not so fast, my friends. I just confuse them and neutralize the size and the speed they had." So essentially, they choked, but can't do that apparently. Bobby Clark firing Terry Murray on this day. Now, this story, this goes to show you, because now today in the paper, top story is always the Phillies, especially during Philly season. But this had far more pages of coverage, and on the Daily News, the back page, this was the big story. The Phillies were just a little footnote at the bottom. But on this day in 1997, same day that Terry Murray got fired, Joe Carter and the Blue Jays returned to the vet for the first time since Game 5 of the 93 World Series. Phillies were already mired in a last place season under Terry Francona, but 26,799 fans came to the vet that day to see the Blue Jays and boo Joe Carter in what would be the Phillies' first ever regular season interleague play. Hard to believe because it's been here for so long now, 25 years or more than that actually, going on 28 years. But interleague play, kids, for some of you younger fans out there, it didn't always happen. It wasn't until this week in 1997. So the Phillies' first interleague game was at the vet against the Blue Jays. They kind of got some revenge, I guess you could say, beating the Blue Jays 4-3. Greg Jeffries went 2 for 4 with 3 RBI. Kevin Stocker was on base all 4 times during his plate appearances. 2 hits, a walk, and a hit by pitch. Curt Schilling was on the mound, 6 innings pitched, 8 strikeouts. But unfortunately, the Phillies would lose the next 2 to the Blue Jays. But the Phillies won their first ever interleague game on this day in 1997, the same day that Terry Murray was fired by Bob Clark, essentially for calling the players out for choking.
It's time for Fridays with AI, where we ask AI to rewrite Philly sports history. Every Friday, only on This Day in Philly Sports History.
That's right. I told you never know when AI is going to show up. It is time for Fridays with AI. And honestly, there's only one way I could go with this. I was torn between this and a Flyers one, but Phillies Blue Jays this weekend. It's the anniversary of the first interleague game the Phillies ever played, which happened to be against the Blue Jays. So why not go tear off the Band-Aid and go ask AI the important questions, even though Joe Carter ruined our childhoods. What if Joe Carter didn't hit that home run in Game 6? And AI, this was probably one of the most, it took forever for AI to come up with the answer for this, because I think AI is a Philly fan and had PTSD as well. But for the most part, Game 6 plays out exactly the same way. Joe Carter comes up, and instead of hitting a home run, he just misses and has a long fly out to left field. I've seen Joe Carter talk about it. I've seen Mitch Williams talk about it. It's basically what happened is Joe Carter guessed. He guessed right, and that's why he hit the home run. But what if he missed it? And AI says, all right, let's assume he misses it, and it's just a long fly out to center field. That's 2 outs now. So if you look, there's still 2 on, but if you look at the Blue Jays lineup, they had pinch ran for John Olerud earlier. So be a pinch hitter coming up. Mitch Williams stays in the game, induces a ground out to second base, ending the game. Phillies tied up 3-3, force a Game 7, which would be the next night. So after the game, Fergozzi says everyone is available, including Curt Schilling, who pitched a complete game in Game 5, threw over 100 pitches and was just dominant. Fergozzi said, look, everybody and everything is on the table for this game. So Game 7 starts off with Lenny Dykstra hitting a home run in his first at-bat, something he did a lot that entire playoff series throughout that whole 93 season. And then as far as the pitching staff, Fergozzi starts with Danny Jackson, goes to Tommy Green, David West, Roger Mason, Larry Anderson, Bobby Thigpen. They all pitch in this game. Everybody gets an inning or a little bit over an inning. We go through 7 innings. All those pitchers were used. So that leaves only really 2 guys that, other than your starters, left. But the score is tied 2-2 after 6. Lenny Dykstra hits a 3-run homer to break the game open in the top of the 7th, his second of the game. Phillies lead it 5-2. Curt Schilling comes in for the bottom of the 7th. Bottom of the 7th. Leads him in for the 8th. Blue Jays get a run. Phillies get a run. So it's now 6-3. And 9th inning comes. Curt Schilling comes out again. His arm's probably ready to fall off, but we know what Curt Schilling does in the postseason. Remember the bloody sock and all of that. Gets the first 2 batters out quickly, gets into a little bit of trouble, and the only guy left on the roster to come in is Mitch Williams. Mitch is able to pitch out of the jam. Phillies win 6-3, winning the World Series in 1993. It took everybody in this game, but Lenny Dykstra, with the 2 home runs, wins the MVP of the World Series. And obviously, this team is already one of the most beloved teams in Philly sports history. They become unequivocally, hands down, the most lovable and favorite team in Philly sports history to this day due to winning this World Series. So obviously that is a very realistic scenario, the way that game played out. But what does it mean for the Phillies' future and the rest of Philadelphia? It does sort of change the way that ownership and management views the team. If you remember during this time after, 93 was just sort of a blip on the radar. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. From 84 to 2000, Phillies only had 3 seasons over 500 or better. So this happened to be just like an anomaly blip on the radar. But ownership sees how much the team and the city got behind this team and is willing to spend some money. They're like, okay, we're not going to consider ourselves a small market club, even though we're in the 4th or 5th largest market in the league. So how does it play out for the Phils? Well, the Macho Row guys, those careers, Kruk, Dalton, Dykstra, they all sort of play out the same. Just kind of get older. They had their run, but doesn't leave the team in as bad a position because it changes the luck of the team. Obviously, you're World Series champions. You have a lot of potential. So they start building around. And essentially, the Phillies become perennial contenders because of the advent of the wild card. When Scott Rowland gets here, instead of being pissed off and miserable at the lack of spending, he sees what winning in the city does for a team. He sees that management is willing to kind of build from within and get the right guys in place. So he ends up staying. He doesn't force the trade to the Cardinals and ends up being the starting third baseman then on the 2008 World Series winning team. So Dalton and Dykstra get statues when Citizens Bank Park opens up for being World Series heroes. Obviously, I think both of them are no-brainers. Dalton because he was the leader of that team, and Dykstra for winning World Series MVP. But the mindset of the fan base is probably the biggest change here. And that impacts the other teams. So there's not as much pressure on the Sixers and the Eagles and the Flyers to win because it had only been, instead of going 25-plus years without winning a championship, it's only been 10 years. So it's still relatively fresh. Fans are happier. We all saw how we were after the World Series in 2008, how we were after the Super Bowl, and how we are now. So there's not as much pressure on the team. Maybe there's no curse of Billy Penn after all. I don't know if I buy that. But that essentially is what AI says would have happened if Joe Carter didn't hit that home run and instead just flied out. Let me know what you think about that. I think, again, AI has really been coming in with some very believable and realistic things because I think in that game, Fregosi probably would have gone with all his pitchers, including Curt Schilling. I think it's feasible that Lenny Dykstra leads off the game with a homer and then hits a clutch 3-run shot in the 7th. He would have been the MVP likely if they would have won that series anyway. But what do you think? Hit me up on the Back to the Future voice and text line, the Discord channel, all my social media. Let's talk 93 Phillies as the Phillies and Blue Jays set to take a weekend series on, or take on the Blue Jays at weekend series at Citizens Bank Park. I'll get it out. But let me know your thoughts on Fridays with AI. Joe Carter does not hit the home run, but instead flies out. All right, that does lead to today's trivia question. Sticking with the 93 Phillies theme, who led that team in batting average that year? Hit me up on the Discord channel, all my social media. But who had the highest batting average on the 93 Phillies that year? All right, and then finally today, our greatest individual season in Philly sports history tournament resumes. Recapping yesterday's matchup out of the Flyers region, Bernie Parent from 1974-75 blew Reggie Leach's 75-76 season out of the water with 86% of the vote. I don't know if I agree with that, but Bernie Parent moves on, setting up a potential Parent versus Parent matchup. More on that later. But thank you for voting. And now today's matchup comes out of the Sixers region. We have the number 7 seed, Joel Embiid's 2022-23 season. That was his MVP year. All-NBA first team. He was an all-star, averaged 33 points a game, 10 rebounds, led the league in free throws made per game, shot almost 55% from the floor, averaged almost 2 blocks, almost 5 assists. Injuries down the stretch, though, kind of cost them. That was the infamous Game 7 loss to Boston, where the Sixers had a chance to close out the Celtics in Game 6 on their home floor and couldn't get it done. But Joel Embiid's MVP season in 2022 and 2023 is our 7 seed, taking on Charles Barkley's 1988-89 season. He averaged 25.8 points per game, 12.5 rebounds per game, led the league in offensive rebounds a game with 5.1, had the best 2-point shooting percentage in the league, averaged 4 assists, was an all-star, all-NBA first team, led the Sixers to the playoffs after taking a year off, although they lost to the first round in the Knicks. But this is when Hersey Hawkins started to come in, Johnny Dawkins, and we all thought that the future was bright. So now it's your turn. Who had the better season, Joel Embiid in 2022-23 or Charles Barkley in 1988-89? Same deal. Hit me up on social media. Call or text me in the Back to the Future voice and text line. Discord channel. Everything is fair game. Get your vote in. Don't forget about our trivia question. Who led the 1993 Phillies in batting average? All because we spent Fridays with AI and went down the rabbit hole of what would happen if Joe Carter didn't hit that home run. I like this outcome much better. Maybe we'd have a little bit less of an edge if Joe Carter flied out instead of hitting the homer. But on this day in 1997, Phillies' first ever interleague game against the Blue Jays, winning 4-3. Same day that Terry Murray was fired as Flyers head coach. And in 1995, also not a good day for the Flyers as they were eliminated in the Eastern Conference Final by the New Jersey Devils. Let me know your thoughts as well on the Sixers draft. I say it's got to be VJ Edgecombe. I would not even entertain a trade unless there's something that absolutely knocks your sock off, or you're trying to get and somebody takes Joe and Paul George. But let me know your thoughts on that. Good luck today. It is Friday the 13th, but this has been This Day in Philly Sports History for June 13th, 2025. My name's Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a feel-good Friday, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.